This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar.
Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
What's up, everybody? Hello. Cold open.
Hello?
Cold open. I'm not used to the cold open.
We have nothing to, well, because they know we react. We spend like 5 minutes reacting to the nonsense. And this way we actually get the show on the road.
That's true. It's probably for the best.
Probably.
Probably for the best.
And we don't get to do 2 weeks ago we did Shapes. Last week we did Schrodinger's cat. We don't get to do like a lesson. Well, maybe that'll come later in the show.
Maybe that'll come. I have a little bit of a lesson.
Okay.
It's unsolicited, though. It's an unsolicited lesson.
Is it that we shouldn't get a haircut the same week because it's going to look like we did it on purpose?
I didn't know that happened. But
I got called out for that earlier. Taylor Kyles called us out for that earlier.
Well, why didn't we just name names? Taylor Kyles called you out for it.
Yeah, called us out for it.
Okay. All right, fair enough. But before we get into the show, hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places, and easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. All right,
what's your lesson?
This is an unsolicited lesson.
Okay.
And totally just my thoughts on the state of the Patriots right now.
Okay.
Which, if you turn on your station, even our station, things are not going so hot right now.
No, they're not.
Around here.
I would say that's an accurate assessment.
At 1-6. But the one thing that I come back to, because this is a football show, and I hope I said this when Bill was here, because I this is truly how I feel. I could care less about press conferences. I could care less about what is said at press conferences. I could care, that's why we were just talking, for people that just continue to listen. We were talking on Unfiltered about some of the comments by the receivers and this, that, the other. I just don't care. I don't care about that kind of stuff. Who's talking, who's saying this, who's saying that, the coach this, the coach that. I just don't care. What I care about is what goes on the field and the results of what happens on the field. And the way that I view right now at this team is, I'm not 100% sure that Mayo knows what type of head coach he wants to be. And when I look at head coaches, and we have this conversation all the time.
Yeah.
When I look at head coaches, I put them in two buckets.
Khakis and non-khakis.
Correct. I put them in the culture builders, or for funny, personality hires, right? Like, who are the guys that just get hired because they're absolute leaders? They are just leaders of men. They rally the troops. Their players would run through walls for them. They have total buy-in.
Well,
those types of guys.
If I can borrow from Madden.
Yes.
So when you set up, when you create a coach on Madden, right?
Yeah.
You can create one of three, you have three options for what your coach is.
Yes.
And it sets up different abilities you have, whatever. But I always thought, at least in the three, they give you a pretty good example. You have tacticians.
Yep.
Motivators, and developers. And those might not be the exact terms, but it's basically the motivational coach is you get a boost. And I feel dumb using Madden for this, but I think it sets up your point well. You get a boost to team chemistry, player morale.
Right.
You lose less composure if you go on the road, things like that. Strategist is you get a boost, developer is you get boost when it comes to the draft. You get a boost to player traits, and then strategist is you get a boost using certain plays or whatever. So
I don't necessarily. Developer to me is not a category.
Not anymore. It was,
but I
think you see less coaches doing that.
Yeah, I want to keep it in two separate categories just for simplicity's sake too. So, culture builders.
Yeah,
guys that I would point to who I think they are head coaches in this league because they built extremely strong relationships and cultures. Dan Campbell in Detroit, I think, is the number one guy in this right now. Mainly because Pete Carroll doesn't have a job, right? Pete Carroll to me was the guy for this, right? Dan Campbell is the guy now.
Can I I think there's a difference because people are going to jump to, so players coach. I think there's a difference between being a players coach and being a culture builder.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin's a culture builder.
So I was going to get to Tomlin.
Okay.
So Dan Campbell to me, you watch Detroit's post-game locker room sound footage
Yeah.
and stuff. Like, I'm not the biggest Dan Campbell guy, you know that, because I'm going where I'm going with this. But I would run through a brick wall for that guy.
Right.
Like, that guy is just, he is 100% locked in terms of that type of stuff. I think Mike Tomlin's another really strong example of a great, great culture builder.
Right.
Just one of those guys that you hear stories of Steelers players talking about Tomlin like he's this legendary motivator, leader, just father figure in a lot of ways for some of the younger guys. Just a really, really great leader of men. Then in the other category is my group, is the khaki guys, right? The strategists, as you put it with Madden. The Kyle Shanahans, the Sean McVays, obviously Bill when he was coaching.
I feel like Bill supersedes this. Bill
to me, though, what I'm getting at is Bill to me, his ultimate trump card was X's and O's.
But I don't know about that. Bill did such a good job. Like, you look at those peak teams and the culture he built, and I'm talking about going back with guys like Teddy Bruschi, right?
Yeah.
And the accountability and I know people roll their eyes at this point and do your job, but there's weight behind that. No,
let's put him in a different category.
Bill is his own
That's fine.
thing. Bill supersedes that.
I also would say that another guy that's trending towards superseding this is Andy Reid. But Andy Reid started as a strategist and has turned into a culture guy.
I was going to say if there's one guy in the league that supersedes it, it's Harbaugh.
I think Harbaugh is a culture guy.
Jim, not to be clear. Baltimore, Jim, not John.
So John, not Jim.
John, I always get them mixed up. The one that's actually been an NFL coach.
John.
And the one that didn't get run out of college
I think
football.
John is a culture builder. He's a special teams coach, worked his way up in that respect.
I guess maybe
Culture
I'm giving
builder.
credit to the staff. Like, what they do, and I guess it's not him, but like what they do offensively is so unique and so special. And the way they were able to put that around Lamar definitely came in as a culture builder. And, maybe credit goes to Greg Roman for that.
Yeah.
But him having the foresight to hire Greg Roman and allow him to build what he built. And I know it's not Greg Roman anymore, but you get my point. That's why I would say, like, they do some very unique things schematically. And so I that's the one guy. But he's not Bill. Nobody's Bill, but like Bill is all of the above to me. Bill is culture, schematic, player developer. Like, he's full package.
Sure. So my point is bringing this up just to bring this all home.
Well, this is football philosophy stuff. I could do this all day.
I am still unsure of which bucket Gerard Mayo falls into and wants to fall into, because if he was sold to us when he was hired by Mr. Kraft as a great people person, as somebody that a motivator that relates to the young generation, that relates to today's player, that played in the league, that is just one of these guys that guys gravitate towards, like the culture side of things. But I look at the Patriots culture in the early going, and look, at 1-6, was Dan Campbell's culture in Detroit fantastic? Probably not, right? Just to be fair. But I look at the Patriots culture and I say, well, I don't see him building that here. Like, I don't see a great culture forming here. When you think of great culture, you don't think of all of the jabs we've had in the media from the players in the locker room over the last week or plus more. Like, going all the way back probably to San Francisco to now. We've had this going on with guys, calling out teammates, calling out each other,
coaches calling guys out.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, after the game on Sunday in London, we're playing soft, right?
Yeah.
Like that to me is not something that a Dan Campbell, a Mike Tomlin, one of those types of guys that's trying to set a culture and an identity to his football team would have necessarily done. And the other side of it is that when I watch film and I watch this team play, I don't watch them on either side of the ball right now and think that they are schematically advanced or ahead of the curve. Like they're doing something on offensively or defensively that is innovative or fresh or exciting or anything of that sort. So when you're a player on a team, and again, this is just my opinion of how I feel about it. When you're a player on a team, in order to fall in line and kind of follow the head man, you have to be able to say to yourself, well, what are you bringing to the table? So not everything that Bill Belichick, and the reason why I wanted to bring him into the conversation is because not everything that Bill Belichick did, every player liked, right? We know that. Over 20 plus years, how many different guys, even when they were winning, how many different guys had issues with Bill? Tons, dozens. Yeah. But on Sundays, they were the most prepared team. They were the most well-coached team. Their game plans and their schemes were innovative and hard to defend or hard to score against offensively. So everybody said, yeah, he can be a little rough around the edges at times, but he's a mad genius, and we know he's going to put us in a position to
There were
succeed.
guys, I think it's Ronnie Harris. I don't want to falsely attribute this to him, but I know there's some guys from that era that talked about, when I was playing for Bill, it was tough. I know I understand it. It was frustrating, but looking back on it now, 5 years, 10 years later, I appreciate what he did.
Right.
Because he got the most out of me. He got the most out of us. And I think that's what the culture was. I think that's what the culture was that this isn't going to be easy.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily going to enjoy it on the day-to-day, but at the end, you're going to be a champion, and you're going to be, I think Bill was also part of, personal development, too, which is something Gerard Mayo's talked about. And, guys appreciate that retroactively. But I also think there's an element of winning cures all. I'm a big believer in that, right? I don't think you're seeing a lot of the issues you're seeing now with the Patriots if they're simply winning games. Sure. So
absolutely.
And I think that's part of why Bill's system worked, because they won.
It's tough as a player, I would think. It would be tough as a player to... Now we're in a situation where it feels like the head coach might not necessarily have my back at all times, especially after the comments on Sunday. But I also don't feel like we are being prepared by this schematic genius either. So it's as a player, what am I gravitating towards? What am I holding on to that these coaches are doing what's best for us moving forward? And to expand on this in a little bit more detail specifics, the one thing that I was really reluctant about when they made this hire was that Gerard Mayo, and we talked about this back in January, I know we did for a fact, so it's not retroactive. Gerard Mayo, right off the top, said that he wanted to be this CEO head coach like Bill was.
Yeah.
Where he was going to let his coordinators and his position coaches, and he was going to delegate, and he was going to be the guy over the top that was going to make sure that the ship was pointed in the right direction. The concern that I had with that from the jump was that Belichick had 50 years of coaching experience to pull from to say in an offensive team meeting to Josh McDaniels, this is what we need to do to win this game, or this is what we need to fix. This is what our issues are. Or a special teams meeting, which he coached in the league.
Right.
This is what we're doing wrong. This is what we need to do. When you look at those things as a first-time coach in the NFL at 38, 39 years old, there's just no possible way that Gerard Mayo is going to have the knowledge of all three phases to be able to just be that overseer of everything. So I look at a lot of other young coaches in the league, and a lot of those guys early on in their head coaching tenures, they focus on the side of the ball that they know. D'Amico Ryans, he coaches the defense in Houston. Bobby Slowick is in charge of the offense. D'Amico Ryans, he's the defensive play caller. He's, by all intents and purposes, running the Texans defense as the defensive coordinator. You look at Sean McVay early on in his career with the Rams. He hired Wade Phillips to run his defense. Sean McVay ran the offense. He started getting the program underway, and he had Wade Phillips there as the head coach of the defense. And he didn't really have much to do with it on the defensive side of the ball. Mike McDonald in Seattle right now, he has the defensive play calling duties in Seattle. He is running their defense. So a lot of these younger coaches, when they first get their first crack at it, They're not trying to go in there and be Bill Belichick in the sense of, I'm going to run everything.
Right.
And I'm going to have my hand in every single jar, and I'm going to make sure that everything's buttoned up and everything's good to go, because they understand that they don't have the expertise or the knowledge to go out and do that. And what I see from right now with Drake Maye is, first of all, the defense has completely regressed because his hand might not be as deep into that bucket as it has been in the past. And I see a guy that's stretched a little bit thin and is trying to do too much and is trying to be so involved in every little aspect that now no aspect is going the right way. So if I was Mayo, and he probably won't do this, but if I was Mayo, I would strongly consider taking over the defensive play calling. And I would try to button up the side of the ball that I know. Worry about what you know and button up your side of the ball. I feel like this setup is asking a lot out of a first-time head coach.
Well, to me, this partially goes back to the construction of the staff. And another thing we talked about a lot back in January was getting that senior football advisor type person, right? Mike Vrabel was the name we threw out quite a bit, that isn't the head coach, but is basically there to be a resource, and that would essentially be your CEO. But it's not, you look at some of these young coaches. I think you made this point on the show last week. Sean McVay, when he started, offensive mind, who did he have running the defense?
Wade Phillips.
Phillips, who's, as experienced as you can get. Some of these other young coaches now, Mike McDaniel, they had Vic Fangio there. And I don't remember if was that his first year that they hired Fangio?
No, Josh Boyer, who was their coordinator with Flores.
Oh, he stuck around for a year. But okay,
yeah.
So you had continuity or something. With a lot of these young coaches, you get that. You have a first-time offensive coordinator, essentially first-time offensive coordinator, first-time offensive play caller.
Yeah.
I should say that. First-time defense coordinator, first-time special teams coordinator. There are a couple of veterans sprinkled in on the staff, right? A guy like Ben McAdoo, a guy like Tom Quinn on special teams. But the question is, are they in positions where they're empowered to really make a difference or not? And with a young coach, especially a young coach who wants to oversee everything, it maybe would have made more sense to find veterans, guys with experience in these other spots. And I think what you're seeing right now is just, it's a very young, very inexperienced coaching staff. You have a lot of guys that aren't just new hires, but are in whatever their respective job is, whatever their title is, they're in that job for the first time.
Yeah.
And they're, again, like Ben McAdoo, he's been there. He's also not this all-time, innovative offense. He's experienced, but there's a reason he was available. How much of an input does he really have? What kind of position is he in to say, well, from my experience, we should do this or that? Same for Tom Quinn on special teams. I'm trying to think if there's an equivalent on defense. Jerry Montgomery's been in the league, but he's never been a defensive coordinator. I don't really think they have an equivalent on defense.
No, and I don't want to.
I guess Mayo would be the equivalent on defense.
I don't want to spend too much time more on this. I just philosophically, I just feel as though Drake Maye has to pick a path of what kind of coach that he wants to be, and if he recognizes, okay, I'm not going to be one of these X's and O's wizards. That's not really my strong suit. My strong suit is relating to people and communicating and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. And that can work. I gave examples of it working. Campbell, Tomlin, Carroll. I
want it written down that you're saying Dan Campbell is working. But
you can't argue with the results, but Dan Campbell's working with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn as his coordinators. So he has the nerds and he has the X's and O's guys below him on the totem pole. That's not Alex Van Pelt, right? That's a young, innovative offensive mind. And Ben Johnson, who everybody is kicking the door down to hire as a head coach. That's a different situation. So you look at all this stuff, and I believe that he wants to be, he keeps on bringing him up, in that Dan Campbell mold. Yeah. If he wants to be in that Dan Campbell mold, then things like press conferences matter. That stuff matters more to you than it would to a Kyle Shanahan, because you need to be sending out a clear, concise, unified message.
Shanahan's a weirdo in press conferences. Do you remember a couple years ago when they asked him about Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's like, I don't know if anybody's going to be alive by Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
Like, when you're Kyle Shanahan and you say something nutty like that at a press conference, the players might just be like, well, that's Kyle, but guess what? Like, our game plan on Sunday, we're going to hang 35 on these guys, so it doesn't matter. If you're going to be that culture builder, if you're going to be that kind of head coach, then things like calling your team soft after games and things that are being said in press conferences, that type of stuff needs to be more buttoned up, because the players, you need to win the players over and have them get behind you because they like you and they respect you.
Right.
And these types of things are not doing him any favors. Again, I go back to it though, and then I want to move on to Drake Maye and some of the other particulars. I don't love that he has decided to be a CEO head coach. I think it's really difficult to do the first time around. Like, if you're doing this, Bill wasn't truly that until they were already established here as a winner. Like, until multiple Super Bowls. I mean, Robert Kraft said that he didn't really give full control to Bill Belichick until like 06 or 07 or something like that, when Scott Pioli left.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to do that this early on in your coaching tenure. There's just a lot of things that you don't know about, that are new, that are coming at you fast. And I feel as though it might behoove him to focus more on one particular thing. And if he can get this defense buttoned up from a fundamental standpoint, tackling, run fits, coverage busts, like cut down on all that kind of stuff and be a little bit more of like a quality control guy on that side of the ball, then they can stay in games more. But if he's going to continue things like this, then I don't see a path of it necessarily getting better. And that can be scary. In terms of the quarterback, I do want to give the coaching staff a tiny bit of kudos. I feel like they've taken on a lot of water. I want to give them a tiny bit of kudos because as much as we can rail them for all the stuff we just talked about, I am very, very impressed with Drake Maye and his development and his preparedness for these games. Like, Drake Maye is ready to go.
Yeah.
On Sundays. Whatever they're doing, whether it's McAdoo, it's Van Pelt, it's T.C. McCartney, the quarterback's coach. I don't know who's exactly responsible. They keep telling us it's Van Pelt, so I'm just going to give him the credit for the time being. Whoever is responsible for Drake Maye in his development and getting him ready to play on Sundays and all that kind of stuff, they've done a great job with him. They've done a really nice job with him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, there's a lot of questions about the plan. There's a lot of questions about the timeline, but clearly it worked. And I know there's people now like, imagine if he was playing earlier. Like, maybe those 5 weeks made a difference. Have you considered that?
No.
Like, there were always going to be people who whenever Drake Maye started, if he looked good, said, well, he should have been playing earlier, completely ignoring the whole concept of the passage of time. But no, he's been really impressive. Van Pelt does deserve credit. And you hope that now you walk this tightrope where you hope that the other things that are going on in the organization don't derail the progress he's making. And I know there's been some questions about changing the offensive coordinator, coaching changes in the offseason, which are like fair questions. But I think anytime you ask those, you have to factor in what it means for Drake Maye, because at this point, like, you're seeing from Drake Maye a guy who truly potentially is the future, and you don't want to mess around with that. Yeah,
I continue to be super impressed with mentally how much of a grasp he has on the game already so early on. There's some physical stuff I want to get to on the the minus side or the negative side as well, but his ability right now to process defense, to understand coverage, ID coverage, get through his progressions and get through his reads. Like, this is a guy that's going 1, 2, 3 in progressions consistently. 1, 2, 3, check down, backside dig, left to right, right to left progression reads, IDing coverage, Tampa 2, exotic Tampa 2, man-to-man. Like, that's what he's getting last week in Jacksonville. And he's reading it all out and knowing where to go with the football. I have so very few problems with where he's going with the ball. Now, is the ball getting there? Is maybe a different story, which we can talk about. But so much of the battle for young quarterbacks is knowing where to go with it, not necessarily is it accurate and all that kind of stuff. Anticipation, playing on time, playing from the pocket, trusting the pocket. Like, all these types of things he's doing really well and progressing and getting better at, and over the course of games and over the course of weeks now that we've seen him multiple weeks. A couple throws that stood out. Obviously, the touchdown, poised, calm, collected, under pressure, throws it out to Hasty, lets this guy go and make a play, and they end up scoring a touchdown on it. The touchdown throw to KJ Osborne. It's Tampa 2. Henry gets carried. Osborne doesn't. He throws the ball to Osborne, layers it in there perfectly with some anticipation. Those types of throws are... You don't necessarily see young quarterbacks making those types of reads, those type of decisions and throws this early on in the game. I was just watching the last couple of weeks, watch a lot of Caleb, with cross film and stuff like that. I was just watching this morning Caleb in week 1 against this Titans defense the Patriots are going to face. They had like 180 yards of total offense. Like, he's all over the place. Leaving pockets, unsure, holding the football, things like that. You don't see a ton of deer in the headlights right now from Drake Maye, where it looks like he just doesn't really know what he's looking at or where he's going with the ball. That type of stuff is extremely impressive. Maybe it speaks to him sitting. Like, that, there's a possibility, and I'm not a pro-sit kind of guy. But the one thing I would say that's anti-sit with Maye is he's also seems to, every single down, every single snap he takes, every time he drops back, you see him learning and getting better. And so he's getting better rapidly now because he's playing,
Oh, but, you don't think that was happening in practice? And I'm not to the same extent it happens in a game, but maybe they wanted that to happen in practice for a month or so before they put him into a game. No, I think that's pro-sit.
It's possible. But I look at it all, drive to drive in games. Yeah. You're seeing him make a mistake and then come back to the same mistake later and
that's
it.
encouraging, but it's also like the thing he still has to work on. And honestly, he did a better job of it this past week, but again, that coming out not too hot.
Yeah.
Not too high, and just kind of being able to settle into the game.
So that's all super encouraging. We talked a lot about quarterback philosophy last week. I'd rather have the toolsy guy that sees it well but doesn't always throw accurately than a Zach Wilson or a Mac Jones who has limitations that are maybe beyond repair. I still don't see anything with Drake Maye that I feel like is bust potential.
No.
At this point. Now, with that being said, just to be objective about it, on the other side of the coin with him, the one thing that I would say that I see with him now is we're still seeing half a dozen sprays a game.
Yeah.
And I know some people are, why are you harping on the sprays? Like, why? It becomes a big deal. And I thought JT O'Sullivan, I watched it last night, he did a QB school on Drake Maye. I thought he did a great job of explaining it with tangible evidence. The issue is that when you miss the throw on first down, it has a domino effect on second and third. So when you come back on second down, and the example that JT used was 2nd and 14, he has Pop Douglas on a little out on the sideline, and he just airmails it, right? It just completely misses the throw. So now instead of 2nd and 14 becoming 3rd and 7, it's now 3rd and 14. Right, and so these issues have this cumulative effect that now, because we missed the layup on second down, now 3rd and 14, now we're punting, right?
Right.
And when you're looking for things like consistent offense, it's difficult to be a consistent offense in this league when you're constantly behind schedule.
And one thing I'll say for Maye, to his credit, these receivers want to make plays for him.
Yeah.
You have guys, and I know this sounds basic. It's not. It's not the case on every team. You have guys in this receiver room, as much as they've kind of complained in the past week, they've shown they'll go outside their catch radius. They'll go into contact to try to make a catch. So it's not even like he has to put the ball directly in the breadbasket every single time. But if he gives these guys competitive throws,
Yeah.
Ideally you want to put it right in the hands, but on the, chances on the case he doesn't, if you can at least give them competitive throws, you have guys that will go up and make a play for you.
Right.
You don't have guys that will be, I could probably get there, but I don't want to take the hit, right? Which does happen around the league.
Yeah.
And I haven't, credit to this receiver core, I haven't really seen that with them outside of maybe a handful of examples, and some of those guys aren't playing right now. So
Yeah.
if he can just get to the point where these throws are competitive, it changes a lot. But these are throws that I mean, there were a couple I had to go back and watch. I think the throw to Pop was one of them, where I couldn't tell if he was throwing the ball away or not.
No, he's throwing it to the guys, and he's going, for the most part, like I keep saying, like he's going to the right places with the
Right.
ball. We just got to now work on being more consistent with our ball placement so that the ball is getting to where it needs to go. I'll give you another example because I don't want it to sound like I'm just nitpicking one example. The third down throw to Kendrick Bourne.
Yep.
That's a 4-point play. That's a difference between 10-0 and 14-0. That's a big deal in an NFL game. He said it himself after the game, like, I need to throw a better ball there. If he hits Kendrick Bourne coming out of that in cut in stride, that might be a touchdown. There's one safety to beat in the middle of the field with a ton of room where Bourne can go left or right to get around him and walk into the end zone. If he hits him on that throw, that's a big difference between 10 and 14-0 early on in the game.
Right.
So you look at those types of things, and that to me is why you have stretches of games where they still have no offense, right? Like, and I understand that there's other issues involved with the offense.
Yeah.
I'm not putting it just on him, but it's those inconsistencies with this offense, this group as a whole. Whether it's like, second quarter, you have a protection breakdown, you have a drop, you have a missed throw. Like, those are the differences between we just started hot and flamed out, and we have this sustained success for 4 quarters, and we have offense for 4 quarters. So when it comes to the misses, I think the number one thing that I see with him mechanically is the throwing hallway. So the throwing hallway, feet, hips, shoulders, eyes, right? All of that needs to be pointed in the right direction of where you want the football to go. And if you're not pointed in that hallway to the right direction, then you're really opening yourself up to having inaccuracies as a quarterback. So at times right now, you'll see him, throwing the ball to the right or to the left, but he's pointed inside. And that causes him to have to like open up his front foot and like swing the gate open, and then now we're airmailing it, we're missing throws, whatever the case may be. So there's still some footwork things I would say with that can be fine tuned and fixed that I think will really improve his accuracy once he gets to the point where that's more consistent and he's throwing from a more solid base. Now, that being said, he can also just go out there and throw a dime to Kayshon Boutte on a go ball. That's the prettiest throw you'll ever see. And that's been a little bit of the Drake Maye experience, even going back to North Carolina. So there's so much positive. I would say it's like 90% positive.
Yeah, it's mostly good, but we're here to talk about everything.
Yeah, those are the little things that I noticed with him that I would just like to see him improve on, especially with those inaccuracy bouts. Like, he has these bouts where he'll just have some throws that just start to snowball on him.
And again, I wonder if some of that is just adrenaline.
It could be.
If it's just, heart's pumping a little too fast and he's putting more on it than he needs to because he's just, feeling it. He's in the moment and just, again, being able to take that deep exhale. I talked about this last week. Don't not play with passion, but, there are quarterbacks that get into those moments and they let it get away from them. What the truly greats do is harness that.
Yeah.
And use it to really focus in that much more.
Yeah. I had just a couple of more throws on the positive side. The throw to Hunter Henry up the seam.
Yeah.
Great catch. But when I watched it back, watching that live, that's a no, yes type of throw live. Watching it back, I was like, oh, wow, no, actually, he saw the coverage. It's Tampa 2. The defender is on Hunter Henry's back with his back to the quarterback. So if you're the quarterback in that situation, all you got to do is throw the ball up.
Right.
Like, just throw it high and let your big 6'5" tight end go ahead and make a play on the football. That was a really good throw in hindsight, watching it back. And it's from like a phone booth condensed pocket. He doesn't really have a pocket to step up into and really drive that throw. And that's where the arm talent shines.
Right.
When he just has muddied pockets, nothing to step into, and he still has that ability to get the football there, not to like constantly make it about him, but the last quarterback here could not make that throw. Like, that's just not a throw that was in one of those guys, either one, to be honest.
I was about to make
either
a joke
one
about that, but yeah.
To be honest, neither one of those guys have that in their bag. That was a great throw. Obviously, once a game now, we're seeing him to Kayshon Boutte on a deep ball, just perfectly throwing passes to Boutte on those vertical routes. Those are great. A couple great throws to Hunter Henry in the middle of the field too. Finally, some like scheme stuff I thought from Van Pelt, going fast four, like motioning the back into the same side of the progression, and then you have four guys releasing on one side of the field. That's like a nice half field read against zone coverage. That I thought was actually the first time schematically that I was like, oh, that's cool. That's neat. Like, good job with that. That was nice. There's just a lot of really good things to come from him. Is there anything else that you're thinking of with Drake?
Kind of minor. So there's a play in the third quarter where they were trying to set up a screen to JaMychal Hasty.
Yep.
And Maye rolls to the right. Rolls to the left. So he's off. He's thrown across his body. And it's the play's not there. And he maybe has a very tight window to Hunter Henry. It's for minimal gain, but it's maybe there. And instead, he just spikes the ball at Hasty's feet.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a really mature play. A lot of young quarterbacks going to force it into the tight end. The 3 yards would not have made a difference in that situation. He didn't get stuck on the screen too long. I know we talk about him as a guy that can make something out of nothing, but I think for those guys, it's also important to know when that's realistic and when it's not. Could he have maybe zipped it in? Hunter Henry possibly. The defender's right there. He's going to get tackled for like a 2-yard gain on 2nd and 10. Live to see another down, and that's something I worried about with him. That was maybe my biggest worry with him coming in was he going to know when to live to see another down? And I thought that was a really good example of he had a chance to take a risk, but it was a risk with really minimal upside. And instead, he just ate it and said, you know what? Put the ball on the ground. Let's get this to the next play.
Yeah, there's some certain people that were very happy about that play.
Okay.
I think you understand what I'm talking about.
And again, like, people might look at that and be like, he's throwing down the field to Kayshon Boutte, and you're talking about a blown screen?
Yeah.
When we're projecting forward, you always compare him to Josh Allen.
Sure
what
do.
drives me up the wall about Josh Allen? Josh Allen throws that ball to the tight end, and maybe it's an unbelievable throw that fits in the window. Maybe gets picked. And in that point in the game, especially coming after a game where he turned the ball over 3 times, like, a turnover, there's a massive no-no. It's not worth the 2 to 3 yards you're going to get. So to see him do that, you talked before about, being beyond his years a little bit and making some more veteran decisions. That one's going to get lost in the box score history as an incomplete pass. But that's something where I look at and I'm like, he's learning. He turned the ball over last week a bunch. He's being smart with the football. And I think they ended up going 3 and out. So, some people may roll their eyes at this and say I'm being too complimentary. That's something that you build on and you go in the film room and say, like, that's good. And if I'm a coach, right, if I'm Alex Van Pelt, I see that and it's like, all right, I can trust the kid more because he's not going to go out there and trip all over himself. So that was a play that really stood out to me. Yeah,
there's another check down that he threw where Onwenu gets beat to the inside quickly, and he had his eyes downfield initially. He feels the pressure, and he's able to just kind of keep the play on schedule and just kind of move over to his right a little bit. And we always talk about, like, don't take 5 steps when 2 steps will do. Yeah. This was a perfect example of doing that the right way. And it was like a little tear screen to the right where, like, the tight end kind of works as a blocker to the back and the flat, and then on the other side is kind of like an ISO, like slant or something like that you can throw that if you like that, access to that slant. And he feels the pressure off the right side on Onwenu gets kind of beat to the inside, and he just very calmly just walks around the pressure, dumps it off. I think it was to Hasty or Stevenson in the flat. They gained some positive yards, and we're still on the script here. And those types of things he did consistently much better Took 4 sacks in the opener, or in his opener, in his first start. This time I thought he did a much better job of avoiding those types of plays.
Yeah, I think there was one play he ran into coverage, that was it. And I get, like, to kind of clarify this, because I think some people might be confused. We're talking about an incomplete, broken screen, a check down. If we're still drooling over this stuff in 4 or 5 years, absolutely call it and call us bozos. Like, this is that thing we've talked about, where this year is a lot about how are you projecting Drake Maye forward. It's just another box that he checked. Like, all right, he knows what to do in that situation. Good.
Yeah.
Moving on. But we hadn't necessarily seen him in these situations, certainly not in the regular season in the NFL. So it just feels worth pointing out, like, all right, this thing is, he's cleared this box on the checklist, onto the next one.
Yep, absolutely. All right, now there's one defensive thing I want to talk about, and then we can do 3 up, 3 down, and then we're going to take the phone calls and the emails, because there are plenty of those coming in, so we always appreciate that. But one thing I just want to get off my chest defensively, watching this game back, it felt like calling out anything else besides just, run defense is effort and want to, and my guy against your guy, and physicality and mindset and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's very seldom that run defense is like a big schematic thing. Like, they're doing something so egregiously wrong schematically or right schematically to stop the run. It's usually just
I push you back
thing.
Or you push me back.
Right. The one thing I would just say with the defense that I actually asked DeMarcus Covington about this today was their personnel usage. And he mentioned that they're seeing a lot of heavy personnel from teams, 12 personnel, 21 personnel, 2 tight end, fullback if you have a fullback on your roster. Teams are putting heavy personnel on the field against the Patriots, hoping that the Patriots are going to match them in heavy personnel. So the Patriots this year are playing base defense almost 42% of the time. That's a 20% increase from last year. So basically what teams are doing is they're putting their heavy personnel package on it. Let's just call it 12, 2 tight end, 2 receiver, 1 back. And they're telling the Patriots, put base personnel on your side of the field, because what we're going to do is we're going to throw it against your base defense, because we know that your linebackers in particular are not great in coverage. So we're going to get base personnel on the field on both sides. We're going to spread you out. We're going to throw the ball down the field. And my criticism of Covington is that he is allowing that to happen. Like, he is giving these other teams exactly what they want. So the Patriots are playing the 4th highest rate of base personnel in the league right now, and they're giving up the 3rd most yards in base personnel. So it's not working, right? Like, they're kind of conceding into it, and it's not working. On Sunday, they give up the 60-yard bomb to Brian Thomas Jr., 12 personnel against Patriots base defense, bombs away. Right, like that's the script right now against the Patriots. So if you're Covington, you have a choice to make. You got to go lighter, and okay, we might get run on like a little bit today, or you got to go heavy, but you have to go heavy and stop the run. Like, right now, they're going heavy and they're not doing anything.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's what it all comes down to. You kind of have to keep the base personnel on the field. They're not stopping the run on nickel right now. There's no shot.
Right, they're not stopping the run out of anything, though.
Well, right.
So that's the problem. Like, if you're going to play base, then okay, but you have to stop the run if you're going to play base. Like, you can't play base and then not be able to stop anything, right? Like, there's got to be a yin and the yang there. That's the problem that they're facing right now, because if you can stop and make the teams one-dimensional and all of that and the other thing, well, then now on 3rd down, you can get nickel onto the field and you can get your extra coverage defenders out there and you can be more athletic and be more dynamic in the back end. So it feels to me defensively, it could be a horses issue. Like, it could just be, if you want to chalk it up that they just don't have the horses or they don't have the personnel, then I hear that a little bit. But I look at them defensively, and I feel like every single week, schematically, they continue to be on their heels. Like, I feel like every time they draw up some sort of an exotic, whether it's a pressure or a coverage rotation or whatever the case may be, they get got all the time in those types of looks. The 60-yarder to Thomas Jr., their base, and they try to run some sort of like cover 3 rotation on the back end where Mapu and Duggar exchange, and there's no post, right? Like, there's no deep safety in the middle of the field, and Christian Gonzalez gets beat on the deep post by Brian Thomas Jr. looking for inside help. There is no inside help to be had. Like, those are the types of things that they're trying to do to disguise and confuse and all that kind of stuff, and it's just every button that Covington is pushing right now is the wrong button, and that's what happens when you're a 1-6 football team, I suppose.
It just all starts up front. I think if they can figure that out, you'll see some progress, but if not every play, almost every play in that game, like, they're just getting blown off the line of scrimmage, and this is true on both sides of the ball, by the way. But it was late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter. It was on that long drive that the Jags had, which, by the way, that 17-play drive, in terms of time of possession, that's the longest drive in the NFL since 2022.
Wow.
11:24 off the clock. And they have a 4th and 1, and the Jags line up for quarterback sneak. You know, like, usually quarterback sneak, right? Quarterback's going to put his shoulder down and get ready to lean into it. Trevor Lawrence could have held the ball out in front of himself. Like, there were too many plays where, all right, so the Jags are at the plus 40, at their plus 40. That play is being played from, like, the 38-yard line. Yeah. Because of just the initial burst from the offensive line. And, it was the same on both sides of the ball. Like, Patriots are at the plus 40. They're trying to run the ball. It's being played like it's from the 42. I think they were averaging .33 yards before contact on the ground in this game. Yeah. So, like, they weren't getting out of the backfield before a defender was there. They just weren't. And you can't play that way. Like, you're not going to play that way and be successful. Every football game is won or lost at the line of scrimmage. You're not going to find teams that win regularly that aren't at least decent up front. And in a game like that, again, they're just getting blown off the line on both sides. And you talk about the coverage issues, like, they may be being too complicated back there. I thought Gonzalez was still pretty much right on Brian Thomas Jr. on that play. That's a hell of a throw and a hell of a catch.
So that's why, though, like, you know, he's playing like a cover 3 technique. Right. Both corners are. So I'm assuming that it's a cover 3. And Mapu and Duggar, kind of switch responsibilities where Duggar starts up top, then comes down into the short zone distribution as like the hook, and then Mapu goes back into the post into the middle of the field, and Mapu opens to Jonathan Jones's side and tries to take the in cut, and it just leaves Gonzalez one-on-one on the post. When he has that leverage and he's playing outside leverage with his hips open inside to the quarterback, like, it's impossible for him to cover that play. Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, but like, he's right there. And he's been good, and outside of a couple coverage busts, like, I don't feel like they're getting physically beat a ton.
No, the only time where I feel like, sorry to cut you off, but the only time that I feel like their coverage is poor, whether it's Baltimore inspired or it's Brian Flores inspired, whoever you want to give the credit to, you can give it to. But they're running a lot of those, like, creeper zone pressures where they're only in a 6-man zone. And Flores, like, started really doing this with 5 with cover 0 and stuff like that. And he was sort of the first guy in the NFL level, at least, to run a lot of that kind of stuff with zone coverage behind it instead of man-to-man. And so they're running, like, for example, they had that in-cut, angle Texas route to Dearness Johnson that went for like 26 yards. Uche is in coverage, misses the tackle. That's one of those, schemed up pressures where they're blitzing a off-the-ball linebacker, and then Uche is replacing the off-the-ball linebacker in the coverage, and it's just, the whole thing just opens like the Red Sea.
So when I say, like, I'm talking about, like, I think Christian Gonzalez has played well.
Yep. I think Gonzalez and the Joneses have played well.
Yeah, so, but when you're not generating any sort of pass rush.
Yeah.
And so now you have to blitz or do creative things in the secondary to try to get a leg up on defense. Now it's too much. To me, it all goes back to, again, just winning up front. I talked about the run, and I had that number, 0.33 yards before contact for the Patriots in the ground game. The Jaguars averaged 2.2 yards before contact in the ground game. So you're talking, night and day.
Yeah.
Then you get into the pass rush. They only had 2 pressures in this game, according to PFF, and one of them was, like, purely schemed up. Marcus Jones coming from the second level, and he takes a bad angle and he misses the play, and Trevor Lawrence scrambles for a first down on 3rd and 8. Like, they can't do anything at the line of scrimmage right now, and it's just, I don't want to say, like, it lets the secondary players off the hook, but they're getting no help. There's no complimentary football right now on either side because they can't win the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it's disheartening to see how just bad their like schemed up pressures have been. Whether it's your example is a good one of like Marcus Jones, and technically that goes down as a hurry, like in like PFF.
Put it as a pressure.
But it is a pressure. It's, it's a pressure, but it's not good pressure, right? Like it's the bad kind of pressure, which does exist. And every time they dial it up, it feels like it's either that or it's getting snuffed out by the offense and it's blocked, and there's no free runners that are actually applying the good kind of pressure on the quarterback. I agree with you. Like I look at both sides of the ball. There are things I could nitpick with Alex Van Pelt as well. I thought actually in this game it was probably one of his best game plans.
I thought so too.
That's why you score on your first 2 drives of the game is usually when you have a good script. I thought that he had a good script in this game. I think the one critique, and it really is driving me up a wall, trying to figure out why this is. They stink on play action passes. They are not good at it. And
you talking offense or defense?
Yeah, offensively.
Is it because they don't do it a lot?
It could be, but when you look at how teams are playing them run-wise, and like every single team is just their linebackers are just flying downhill at the line of scrimmage against the run game. Like all game long on Sunday, outside zone, backside linebacker for the Jaguars is just coming. Like he's just coming. And the fact that they can't like play action or boot or something off of that and like hit a tight end coming across the field and take advantage of those players being so aggressive, it blows my mind that they can't take advantage of those openings, right? Like if teams are going to be so aggressive against your run game, then you should be feasting on play action passes off of that. I don't think their designs are very good. I don't think their spacing is very good, even though I asked him about that today and he kind of told me I was wrong. I don't really agree, especially early on in this game. I thought there were 2 examples I posted on Twitter that were just not good route spacing at all on either one of those play action plays. It just feels as though they are pairing like outside zone bootleg routes with gap scheme play action. Like it just doesn't marry very well. I just don't really love what they're doing. Like if you're going to have these linebackers come downhill at your offensive line like that, back in the day with McDaniels and O'Brien, like they would just run Gronk like right behind the linebacker, right? Like the linebacker bites, they run some sort of run action, power trap, whatever, get that linebacker to bite. Gronk right behind him, right by his ear, and we're moving. Like those types of what they would call like bang play actions. Like this team is desperately begging offensively for some bang play action plays. Like just hit it right at the second level of the defense. Don't try to go bombs away on like the post crossers and things like that. It's that part of it is frustrating to me, but I actually think that they schemed it up pretty well in the passing game this week against an inferior opponent, I should mention, on defense. But it was better. It was better. All right, let's do 3 up, 3 down. I'll start with you because you actually prepared this week.
I always prepare for it.
You prepared this week. Okay, what do you got?
I mean, we just covered a lot of this. Up for me, Hunter Henry.
Yep.
Just continues to be a good safety blanket.
Yeah.
And it's, you need that for a young quarterback. You talked about his catch earlier. I thought it was an excellent catch. Like you said, good throw too, but excellent catch. And, yeah, he's been good. Yep,
Hunter Henry was my number 1 up as well. I think he's been exactly what they need for a young quarterback. Some of those throws early on in the game when they're running those like post wheel out concepts where he's just like settling into the zone and like understands where to settle and how to get himself open and quarterback friendly. He threw one later in the game to Austin Hooper where Hooper didn't do the same thing and it was almost a pick. Like those types of things with Hunter Henry are really impressive. The off script stuff, like him gravitating open and finding uncovering, like it's dare I say it's like Kelsey-ish, right? Like how good he is in that. He's really, really good at it in the off-script mode. I've been impressed with him on that, too. Clearly, Binky. Like, if you want a Binky, it's clearly been Hunter Henry. Who's your next one?
My next one was Jermichael Hasty.
Yeah.
Made a nice play on the touchdown. Thought he set a couple nice blocks in this game as well. Like, I thought he was solid.
Yeah, so I did one offense, one defense on the ups. I did Anthony Jennings. I felt like he was like the only defender in the run game that was doing anything of productive or anything of value. 4 run stuffs I had for him in this game. They didn't run it outside to his side. Like that's for sure. Had a couple really, really good plays in this game. And he's not soft. He's not having any issues against the run. He's doing his thing in the run game. They just need other guys to follow suit.
Yep.
Do you have anybody else?
Nope.
All right, Downs.
I just gave the whole spiel I was going to give, but I had line of scrimmage both sides. Can't run the ball, can't stop the run, can't pressure the quarterback. And I gave those numbers, yards before contact, the pressure numbers, all of that. You're not going to win football games getting beat at the line of scrimmage like that. Like, to Gerard Mayo's comments, they played soft. Played soft, and I know he kind of recharacterized it from the team is soft to the team is playing soft.
Yeah.
You can split hairs there. The reality is, that shouldn't have come as a surprise to anybody, seeing what was happening at the line of scrimmage. Like, he was right. You want to debate whether or not he should have said it.
Right.
I'm okay that he said it because he said it to the team in the locker room beforehand. I think that's an important piece of context that gets lost. It's
always good when you have facts on your side, too.
Right. If he hadn't said it in the locker room before, I'd be like, what are you doing, guy? But he was right, and you can't play like that at the line of scrimmage and win football games. Plain and simple. High school, college, NFL, backyard, whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to be like that at the line of scrimmage, you're not going to win.
Yeah, I had a similar kind of take on number one. I just put Gerard Mayo, and I also put DeMarcus Covington in this boat a little bit as well. I just personally, I just thought defensively they were not ready to play in this game. I felt like right out of the chute they were getting run on, passed on, pretty much whatever Jacksonville wanted to do. I didn't feel like they were prepared for it. Doug Peterson's him and Press Taylor, they're okay offensive minds, but this isn't 2017 Doug Peterson, right? It's been a minute since that guy's been, the darling of the offensive minds, the tight pants guys. I just really didn't feel like they had much going on defensively that was working or that was well prepared for this game, which was disappointing. And I feel like I continued to say the same thing week in and week out about that side of the football. I feel like I've been on this that I've been more concerned in a lot of ways about the defense and the offense, because the offense I feel like is a personnel issue. Until Drake got in there, I just didn't feel like they had the horses offensively to be this great offense. Obviously could have been better than it was the first month of the season, but it was hard to say they should be scoring 27 points a game with Jacoby Brissett and that collection of talent. So defensively, I still feel like they're underachieving. When you have a defensive-minded head coach, I'm going to put that partially on him, and I'm going to put it partially on the coordinator. So I have them both on there. Who's next?
Next for me, Jelani Tavai. Just another rough game for him, and I feel for him. He's playing out of position right now. He's not in a good spot, but the Jaguars were picking on him in this game.
Yeah, I had Jelani Tavai, and I also had Devon Godshaw in the same category. Mainly just because they need those two guys to be better. As my keys fall out of my pocket.
I was going to say, what was that?
Yeah, they need those two guys to be better, right? Those two guys are guys that they're counting on. Those are their hard hat guys. Those are their circle the wagon guys in a lot of ways on the defensive side of the football. I thought this was a rare down game this season for Godshaw. I think he's been great outside of this week. He struggled this week, and teams now in the run game especially, they're starting to game plan and starting to prepare for him. They know he's a problem. They know he's hard to block. So now they're throwing a bunch of different things at him, whether it's doubles, scheme, traps, whams, things like that on the inside, just different ways and angles and different things to get him blocked. He's seeing a lot of things thrown his way. And by the end of this game, on Sunday, it felt like it was almost exhausting him. He looked tired, trying to mentally process everything that was coming his way. And then you mentioned Tavai, 2 big plays in the passing game. One of them I don't necessarily put too much on him, the bootleg crosser early to Gabe Davis. That's a tough play for a linebacker to stick with the receiver coming across the field like that. But he got beat on that one. He got beat on the 26-yarder to, I think it was 26, 23, 26 to Christian Kirk over the middle of the field. He missed 2 tackles just right in the hole on the ball in the run game down in the red area. he's a good football player. He's just not playing like one right now for the reasons you mentioned, and he needs to be better.
Yeah.
All right, next.
I feel bad about this now. He's in concussion protocol, but Jaylen Polk.
He's on my list too, yeah.
It definitely feels mental at this point, right? And look, I don't think either of... So last week, he had drops. Like, he just dropped the ball. There's a difference between a drop and a catchable pass that's not caught. Like, the two he had in this game, the defenders made a play on the ball. But top 40 pick, a guy that, is big and physical, and it's like, make a better play on the ball than the defender did. Come down with at least one of those two. And going back, and now I think it's mental. I think he has a case of the yips, essentially. If I'm the Patriots, I might see like about him talking to a sports psychologist or something, because going back to watching this guy in camp, if you told me he was going to struggle, hands would have been my last guess as to why that was. Is he going to be able to get away from defenders, whether that be in the route, whether that be after the catch? Is he going to get over, I didn't think it was going to be not holding on to the football. There were other guys in that camp that you definitely worried about their hands. He was not one of them. So, and going back to college too. So to me, this feels like a mental thing, and catching the football is supposed to be second nature for these guys because you have so much you have to focus on. You don't want to also have to focus on catching the ball. That's why they do 250 balls a day on the jugs machine. So it becomes muscle memory. And you start to lose that, it can be a slippery slope. So I think it's mental. He's obviously going to it seems like he's going to get the week off this week. I think, was there one guy all year that's come back from concussion protocol and played that week?
It's probably for the best. Like, I don't wish head injuries on him, obviously.
Well, like I was saying before we knew he was in concussion protocol, like maybe this is a week to just... to use a Bruins parlance, ninth floor.
Yeah.
Right? Just let him kind of take a step back, take it all in, and then get back to it next week. Because the other thing is, this is something you can work through on the field. And Drake Maye has been very supportive of him.
Yeah.
And Drake Maye talked about we need to get him targets early. We need to get him targets in space, get him going. But to go back to something we talked about with Taekwon, Evan, when we were doing Taekwon back in the summer was...
That lasted long.
What's best for... Ideally, what's best for the receiver and what's best for the quarterback are the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that what's best for Jaylen Polk right now is also what's best for Drake Maye, because you need receivers out there that he can count on. And he's talked a lot about still trusting Jaylen Polk, but can he really count on him? It's tough to say. It'd be great if Polk could go back out there and work through it. That's probably not what's best for Drake Maye, and you kind of just have to defer to the quarterback.
Yeah, so obviously the drops are contested drops, I would call them, because
this week, last week they were outright drops.
Right.
This week was more just catchable balls he didn't catch.
The corner out that Drake Maye throws to him where he gets clocked by the safety, it's late, it's a little inside, it's not a great throw.
I'm thinking about more that first one.
So the first one
on the bootleg.
Yeah, so the first one on the bootleg, and this is more what I wanted to talk about with Jaylen Polk. The thing to me with Jaylen Polk, on top of the fact that the hands have been a little bit suspect, like I don't really love the routes either. Like, to me, that route, first of all, he's late out of the gate on that play. Like, he just is late into the route. And when you're late into the route, now Hunter Henry, it's like, think about like in baseball when you're running the bases and like somebody is behind you and is like catching up to you, right, on the base pass because you had to maybe go back to the base to tag up or like thinking of tagging up or something like that. So Jaylen Polk's late out of the blocks on that play. So now he's running the corner and Hunter Henry's running the crosser on the bootleg, and they end up in the same place. They almost end up colliding into each other. So the spacing is off on the play because of the route that Jaylen Polk ran. There's another play, the KJ Osborne near interception. Drake Maye in that play, he starts with his eyes outside to the one-on-one to Jaylen Polk. Jaylen Polk just gets bodied into the ground against press coverage, like can't get off the line of scrimmage and ends up falling, like going to the ground, getting bullied into the dirt by press coverage. Those things are happening on top of the fact that he's dropping passes.
Right.
Like, so, there's a lot in this film from Jaylen Polk, and he was on my list too, as you can probably tell. There's
Yeah.
a lot on this film from Jaylen Polk that was not good. A lot. Like, not just him dropping passes, but just bad, poor routes. It doesn't seem like he's focused. Like, the ball snapped and he's late out of his starting gate. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? So it's absolutely time for him. And I didn't want it to be injury related. Like, no one's wishing injury on the player at all. But it's definitely time for him to take a seat and watch for a couple weeks, because it's details. It's catching the ball, it's route running, it's timing, it's spacing, it's getting off press coverage. All of it has just not been good going on a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, I wonder if it's time for Javon Baker to maybe get another look this week. And we can get into that when we get to the Jets, but I would give Javon Baker another shot.
All right, I have one more. Do you have
I
any?
have one more, too.
Okay, go ahead.
Special teams.
Oh, yeah, you got it.
And specifically this one sequence.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot made. We were talking about this out of practice, actually, of the decision whether or not to go for two when they did, right? And do you want to know, you go for it early, you know what you have. Do you just kick it, make it a one-score game? You risk if you don't get the 2-point conversion, now maybe you're out of time. And I get why people are worked up about that. I would have kicked the extra point. Surprise, surprise, right? I disagree with the nerds. I understand the reasoning behind it, though, unlike usual with the nerds. I can't get fired up about that take one way or the other, though.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Why were the Patriots chasing that point? Do you remember? Because this hasn't been talked about this week, like, at all.
No.
So why were they down 15 instead of 14? Well, first...
Oh, they jumped offside.
Right. So, first, they allowed a 96-yard punt return touchdown.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Just don't
awful.
do that. Be better. Beringer
Just
over
bad
kicks his
football.
coverage.
Just awful.
Right. Beringer over out kicks his coverage. Del Pettis doesn't fill the lane. I think there are a couple other... I think Marcellus Dial maybe blew an assignment in there as well. Don't allow that. Okay, guys, the other team makes plays. All right, you allowed a touchdown. On the ensuing extra point, Jelani Tavai lines up in the neutral zone.
Yeah.
This is also why he was on my downs list, but I was saving it for this part.
Nice.
It is week 7. This is a PAT.
Yeah.
And Jelani Tavai lines up in the neutral zone. If he doesn't do that, the Jaguars kick the extra point. The Patriots are down 14. They're not chasing that point. It doesn't become a discussion. They don't fail the 2-point conversion. But he does. The Jaguars know, all right, we're going to get the ball at the 1. They go for the 2. They capitalize on the opportunity. And now the Patriots are chasing 1 point. The entire game script is altered from that point, because 7 weeks in, you can't line up on sides on a PAT.
I love this.
Well, this is where you roll your eyes and, special teams, blah, blah, blah.
But
the entire game was altered because he lined up half a yard off sides.
They gave up 8 points on special teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't do
it's
that.
not just giving up 8 points. It's they gave up 8, not 7. I said my part about the punt return. I don't mean to excuse that. I said my point about the 2-point conversion. And people, I gave this rant to a friend. He go, you're just trying to let the coaching staff off the hook.
Yeah.
No. It's week 7.
Right.
You can't get lined up right on a PAT. That reflects on the coaching staff as much as or more than it reflects on the player.
Yeah.
Especially after Gerard Mayo came out last week and talked about limiting penalties. Again, that one play, they were chasing that point the entire game. It completely impacted the way both teams approach the game. You cannot have that. When I talk about the margin for error, right? The margin for error this team has, it's 1 point. It's that 1 point. It's that half yard lining up off sides on a PAT. It's not worth it. You can't do it.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and I let you do special teams, but the big
special teams and game script stuff. You just hate this.
But the big reason why I let you do special teams, though, is that to me, special teams is pass fail every single week. Either you did your jobs on special teams, and your job could just be simply as making the layups, like you hit the extra points and you hit the field goals, and you don't give up any big plays in the kick coverage, but you can't have failure, and especially catastrophic failure, or the 96-yard punt return. You can't. It has to be You have to pass, but I don't need you to be this like dynamic special teams unit to like suffice. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you don't have to be like, prime Bears with Devin Hester for me to be like, oh, like good enough. Like, but you can't fail on special teams. You can't have a special teams actively losing.
It's special teams, and it's also, I guess I should say, some game management stuff too, right? Again, chasing that point. You know what else? What'd they do at the end of the first half, Evan?
They screwed up the situation.
Again, same situation. And the Jaguars sat on the ball so they didn't get burned, but that's 4 times in 7 weeks they've managed that situation the same way. They have a 25% hit rate, and the only reason they hit once is because Drake Maye made 2 unbelievable throws to bail out Alex Van Pelt. The game management stuff, I talked about this a little bit last week, that I was worried with Van Pelt coming from that Shanahan tree, and these guys are just not good with it. Like, they're not. And the game management, the game script management continues to get away from them.
Okay, really quickly on the last one for me. Got to put some offensive linemen on this list when you can't run the freaking ball.
That's true. Well, I said line of scrimmage both ways.
Yeah. So I'm not to pick on him exclusively, but City So was rough in this game. I had him with 5 quarterback pressures allowed, a hit, 4 hurries, struggled in the run game, didn't move people off the line of scrimmage very well. Nobody really did, to be fair to him. But, he struggled, I thought, mightily on this film. Just really hasn't been the same guy since that injury in training camp to his ankle, right? I think it was ankle in Washington in the last preseason game.
Yes.
And he hasn't really been the same guy. Like, it seems like his power is, like, sapped from him. So maybe he's still not physically 100%, and that's a reason why. But to me, it more looks like his technique has completely fallen apart. Like he got out of rhythm with it from the injury, and now his technique has fallen apart. His pad level, leveraging blocks, hands, things like that, just hasn't been good enough. I didn't think Michael Jordan was great in this game either. I thought both guards got pushed around by Jacksonville, but Eric Armstead's good. Like City So just had his hands full with Armstead.
Their best lineman right now is a guy they got off a practice squad 2 weeks ago.
And Ben Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, to his credit, I thought that I thought Trey Jacobs was okay, like given the circumstances and given the expectation. I thought he was okay at left tackle, and I thought Onwenu was decent at right tackle again. But the 2 guards were brutal. They both really struggled in this game. All right. I know I've been leaving people on hold for a while, so let's get to these phones. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Good. What you got?
So, Evan, you kind of brought up one thing I wanted to talk about with the run defense. Is it really just effort and want to, or is there any way they can, scheme something up to try and look better? I mean, Breece Hall and Allen, they scared the hell out of me. I mean, they didn't run over. I mean, they ran on us pretty good on week 3, but I think the run defense since week 3 has just gotten progressively worse, even with no Juwan Bentley in week 3. And the other question I had was I'm starting to move the goalpost towards possibly taking Ted McMillan and maybe jumping back into the first and taking Hersey or somebody like that, or Josh Simmons from Ohio State. I wanted to know your guys' thoughts on that. I know offensive tackle's a priority, but we keep hearing these things about Will Campbell, how he doesn't have arm length. And I don't know if you watched the game, Evan, Alex. I know you did, but Banks struggled pretty good against Georgia last week. And that's all I got. This it off air, guys.
Thanks for the call, Patty. So to the first one, run defense, I personally feel that run defense, and this is the X's and O's guys telling you this, so this is how you know that this is really true. I would say run defense is, let's call it 75 to 80% mentality, just physical, want to, effort mentality. Now, the things that they could do. The easiest thing to do is to run blitz, right? But if you're going to run blitz, which is basically the same as blitzing in terms of passing and dropping back to pass, but you're basically just going to shoot a guy through a gap, right? Like if you want to shoot an A, B, usually it's one of the A's or the B gaps. You fire him through the A or the B gap. you rotate the safety behind him into his gap, that he's leaving from off the ball, and you kind of replace him in the run fit that way with one of your safeties. Like, that's doable. Slanting the line, right? So, like, instead of going right vertical at a block, you slant or knife into a gap or across the face of the defender or the blocker, excuse me. Like, that's doable. You can slant the line of scrimmage. You can also go with even front or one gap principles, right? Like, the Patriots are typically a two gapping defense. There is that ability to just, you have the A gap, I have the B gap, and we're firing off the ball and we're going up the field. Me personally, I would like to see them run with some more even gap mechanics and some more one gap with 4 down defensive linemen. I think that could be more effective, mainly because usually teams that one gap are because they have smaller guys. And when I look at their front now, without Barmore, without Lawrence Guy, without Juwan Bentley, I see a small front. And so you have guys like Aquale, Roy, Roberts. These guys are playing a lot. Or Johnson, not Roberts, excuse me.
Did I miss something?
96s, right?
Yeah.
Johnson, Christian Ellis, like, playing at the second level. Like, those guys are smaller players. So maybe having those guys get up the field instead of trying to take on blocks, but going through the line of scrimmage up the field might be better when you have those types of players. Like, when you have beefy dudes, Barmore, Guy, Godshaw, Bentley, Tavai, like Jennings, like, those guys can two gap and they can hold up the wall and build the wall, as it's Belichick used to call it, and all that. They don't necessarily, in my opinion, have the personnel to be a great two gapping front right now.
So one way or the other, what it comes down to is just basically throwing bodies at the problem, which is the answer. You're either going to blitz or you're going to put more players on the line of scrimmage to begin with. But when you do that, it makes things tougher in coverage. As to the second part of his question.
Yeah, that's a you question.
So we had talked about McMillan and Earsey a couple shows ago. You were supposed to watch him against Michigan. You didn't.
No, I fell asleep.
That's going to be a real talking point. Again, like, we still have ball left to play. So I'm not, I'm not coming out with any mock draft just yet, but it's definitely something to, both guys are at this point. To me, it's about who are the names Patriots fans should know. And Ariante Earsey wasn't necessarily somebody who was on that list at the beginning of the year. Ted McMillan was. Even if you wanted to tackle, it was like, well, this guy's going to be a top 10 pick. Be aware of him. Earsey now is definitely on the list. The question is, does he move up too high? The other guy he mentioned was Josh Simmons, who's the left tackle from Ohio State, who kind of came out of, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but like, he was a really hot riser, high riser through the start of the season. He was having a really good year flying up draft boards. He suffered a non-contact knee injury last week. It was kind of nasty looking. Oh, he's out for the year. Look, put out some good tape. Definitely was impressive. For a Patriots team that needs an infusion of talent, even though the upside's there, a guy that's coming off of something like that, they just can't afford to take that risk. They can't. Realistically, he's going to go in around the same range as Earsey. Like, that's the guy. If you want to do that, if you're somebody who wants Ted McMillan and you think he's the answer, it's, move down a little bit if you can. Get McMillan. Whatever you get from moving down, you use to move back up from 34, and that's how you get Earsey. Like, that would be what that would look like to me. Simmons is, because it's college, like, we don't know what the injury is.
Right.
I would be shocked if it's not, just watching it. I'm not a doctor, but
broken something or.
Well, I'm thinking like multiple ligaments kind of thing. Like, yikes. It definitely gave the vibe of like an ACL, and then basically he goes to plant, like he's dropping back in a pass set, and he goes to plant, and his knee just completely buckles. I thought it was an Achilles watching it live. It's being reported as a knee, but like that kind of thing where I'm just like, best of luck to the kid. That's more a spot for a team that, a guy like the Niners, they're going to get tagged him a lot because Trent Williams finishes out, whatever he has left. And then you have this kid ready for a team that needs an instant infusion of talent. A guy coming off a blown knee when there's other options available shouldn't be the answer.
So, like, just philosophically quickly, because I haven't done deep dives into any of these guys yet, as you know. Just philosophically, the part that I guess gets me with the whole conversation is like, how many years are we going to just throw, like, low-level assets at tackle. Like, low level is
Right.
probably the wrong word because it could be a high second-round pick or
Well,
something.
so-
But, like, how many years are we going to basically take a flyer at tackle and essentially kick the can down the road again at left tackle for a shiny new toy?
So let me be clear about this. Let me be clear about this. You are not getting a franchise left tackle in the veteran market, free agent,
Right.
trade, whatever, and they need a franchise left tackle. They do not need a bridge.
We've been talking about them needing a franchise left tackle basically since it was proven that Isaiah Wynn was not going to be
really
a
as long
franchise.
as you and I have been covering the team. Evan.
Every
I
year.
say this right. So
Every year.
they need a potential franchise left tackle. They cannot do a bridge again at that position, not with Drake Maye. So let me be clear about this as I give this take about Ted McMillan. I think Ariante Irsi has franchise tackle upside.
Okay.
The difference is he does not have the floor that Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks
Right.
do. But he's close. Like, these guys are 3-year starters who have been starting since they are true freshmen. You have a really clear idea of who these two guys are.
I just feel
Whereas
like
Irsi, there's a little more
There's the
gray area.
physical
He's not as
upside.
experienced, physical upside. So
Yeah.
I am not saying this lightly to say, well, you need a wide receiver and then you figure out tackle later. Like, if it's like that whole Tet McMillan thing for me is so predicated on you trade back up into the 20s and you still get a potential franchise tackle. It's not you wait to 34 and see if Wyatt Milam maybe falls to you, or maybe the kid from Ohio State falls to you after the injury. That's not what if we make it work this way? No, it's a very specific way that would have to work because, like you said, they cannot kick the can down the road at tackle again. You need a guy that comes in looking like he's going to be your tackle for the next 10 years. Is there a way to get that guy and Tet McMillan? There might be because Irsi's looked impressive. We got, like I said, there's still football left to play. I'm hardly locking this take in. Kelvin Banks had a bad game against Georgia.
Yeah.
I'll say that. The guy he was facing for most of the game, Michael Williams, is going to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
And he wasn't healthy either, like stud. And look, those are the kind of guys you're going to need to block in the NFL. I don't mean to excuse that. But I still probably give Banks a shot, even with the rough game. If he has more rough games, again, I reserve the right to change my mind. But if you're unsure, and I'm a little more unsure about the tackles now than I was in, say, August, you could, if Irsi really comes out and, like, he's got to go to Senior Bowl. Senior Bowl checks the boxes. Combine, impressive. Interviews well. And Tet McMillan is the guy we think he is. If you tell me you can get a package of those two guys, I might be sold on it because I still think you're coming away with a potential franchise tackle. If it's, Josh Simmons off a blown knee, or Wyatt
I just
Milliam,
feel like
who's
you're
probably
really,
a guard
like-
or whatever, now I'm like, no, you don't have, they have to come out of this draft with a potential franchise tackle. If Irsi is one, okay. If he's not, then you throw the whole Tet McMillan thing out.
I just feel like you're really splitting an atom there, where like you're trying to hit a real tight window throw, right? Where
And
like
this
it's like
is-
this has
well-
these dominoes have to fall exactly how we think they're gonna fall to make this happen.
We
And
talked about this
How
last
much do you trust Elliott Wolf at this point to do
Well,
that?
we talked about this last year when people wanted to trade down for the quarterback. Remember?
Right.
I said, are you willing to bet your job on it?
Yeah.
I'm not willing to bet my job on Ariante Irsi yet and being able to find him with the trade down.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get there. This is why I need you to watch him, to tell me, like, be more realistic because you have better eye for this stuff than I think he's a pretty good player. Like, I think he's a pretty good prospect. He's a clear tier 2 tackle. Potential, like, who were the guys last year? Like, Amarius. He's not in the Joe Olufashanu category, but like Amarius Mims, J.C. Latham. There was another guy in that group.
Tyler Guyton,
who I really liked. Like, not necessarily player-to-player comp, but like that tier of player. And we said last year, like, if they walked away with Tyler Guyton, we would have felt good. If they walked away with Mims, I think we had differing opinions on. But, like, that kind of player, we would have felt good. If he's that kind of player, we can have the conversation about Tet McMillan. If he's not, you can't, to your point, you can't take less than a tackle this year. You can't do it. You cannot do it.
All right, let's get back to Ashton in Canada. Ashton, what's up?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, of course. Just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on what you've been seeing out of Marquez Mafu this year. Been watching him a little bit. Kind of looks like maybe some mixed bag of results from what I've been seeing, but I'm kind of excited of what he can be in the next couple of years. And then a couple more prospects for you guys. Just wanted to throw out the name Harold Bannon. He's a tight end from Bowling Green. Pretty fun player. It's pretty exciting to think about Drake Maye throwing him the ball, and then Cullen Pierce is the other one, offensive tackle from Rutgers. Just an absolute hulking tackle. Moves pretty well. Be kind of fun to see him in Scott Peters' system. Just wanted to see what you guys thought.
Thanks for the call, Ashton, and thanks for holding again. In terms of the first question with Mapu, and then I'll let you answer the second question. Mapu, I am intrigued by the physical traits that he brings to the table. I think right now mentally he's swimming in it a little bit. Getting pulled out of passing lanes with play action has been an issue last couple of weeks. This week on the BTJ bomb that we were talking about earlier, I'm not like 100% sure Mapu's assignment sound there. I don't know if he necessarily played that correctly, but those are like mental errors to me, not physical. So I'm intrigued that by the more that he plays and the more he downloads into the computer, because I do think he's a really smart kid, and I've talked to him about football a lot, and I think he's a really smart, quick study. And right now he's just kind of learning on the fly, learning on the job. He hasn't practiced a ton in training camp over the last couple of years either. That probably hasn't helped. So the more experience that he gets, I'm intrigued by the skill set. I think that he's really, I've been intrigued by the skill set for a while. A guy that could play at the second level of a defense, play at the third level of a defense, play a little safety, play a little linebacker, play a little bit in the slot. He's got that kind of versatility. And, just to wrap up that take, like we don't really know right now the future for Jabril Peppers with this team. Right. If Jabril Peppers is out of this picture, then I definitely think that Mapu has a similar type of skill set that could fill in for that and be that guy next to Duggar.
Yeah, I've liked what I've seen from him. The biggest thing for me, like he came right back off IR and was physical.
Yeah,
and we spent the first hour of the show.
There's no doubt about his physical ability.
We spent the first hour of the show talking about how this team's not physical enough.
Yeah,
and they're missing part of physicality. Is like there's guys that set the tone. Like a guy like Juwan Bentley, who has that respect, who has that pedigree, is going to come out and play a certain way, and guys are going to gravitate towards playing that way. And they're missing that tone setter on defense because Pepper's another tone setter. They lost him. Judon's another tone setter. Obviously, he's not here anymore. So Mapu, because he's a younger guy, he's got to grow into that leadership role. But like he's been a tone setter for them defensively. I've really liked what I've seen from him.
Yeah.
A little bit of a drop off last week, but those first two games back, I thought he was maybe their best defensive player.
Yeah, I'll take mental errors if you're playing fast. Like if you're playing fast and you're playing physical, but you're just not quite there as a young player in this league mentally, then we can teach mentally, right? You can't teach 6'2", 6'3", with a 4'5", 4'6", or whatever it is that he ran. Like you can't teach that. What about the prospects? You like any of those guys?
So the guy from Rutgers is just like huge.
Oh.
He's one of these guys that's just like massive. And look, they need more than one tackle. They need depth. I'm always a fan of 360-pound tackle. Yeah, take him late on day 3 and see what you can do with him. But he's not like an answer or anything. Yeah. Interesting player. I haven't done a ton on him just because those guys I usually get into are more like January, February. Harold Fannon's a fun one, right? Bowling Green. When's the last time we talked about a Bowling Green player?
Bowling Green.
Like just kind of pure elite receiving tight end, a little undersized, good athlete. I know people probably hear that and think Jaheim Bell. No, he's like a better player, much more polished player, more of a true receiving tight end. We'll see what his Senior Bowl is going to be big for him. Yeah. Right now, he's projected top 100. I think that's a little rich for them for a tight end.
Yeah.
If they are going to go in that range, and this guy, a little higher but similar range, Tyler Warren from Penn State.
I know that one.
Yeah, he can play.
He snapped it too.
He snapped it, and he caught a touchdown on the pass. He snapped it.
I mean, Bill Belichick would be like on a
Penn State tight end. Like, what more do I need to say, right?
Yeah.
Good player. And then I'm still interested. He's had a little bit of a down year. I still love the idea of, because it's a developmental player. You're not drafting a tight end for this year. You still have Hunter Henry, who's been good. So who can you get on day 3? And tight end also traditionally is like the slowest developing position.
Yep.
Tight ends,
except Sam Laporta,
who's a freak. Yeah. Tight ends produce less as rookies than any other position besides quarterback, which is obviously like a unique thing. I still can't get over the idea of Bryson Nesbitt, who's had a down year. So do you go get him later on day 3 out of UNC, put him back with Drake Maye?
Yeah.
He gets a year to truly develop behind the scenes. Like, I'm going to be a big Bryson Nesbitt guy during the draft. I'll just warn you right now. I'm so into that concept.
I'm into it too. I actually am, and the other guy too it's Hampton, right? The running back, Amari Hampton. Yeah.
So he mentioned Rutgers. I wanted to say this. I got to look up what year this guy is, so I'll let you talk for a second. I think he's draft eligible. They have a running back who is and you remember how much I liked Isaiah Pacheco coming out there.
Yes.
Like, I was crushed. I thought I had found like a diamond because nobody's talking about it.
Andy Reid also found him.
Diamond in the rough. And Andy Reid, right? Me and Andy Reid were the two people.
Brett Veach.
Okay, so Kyle Monongai is a senior. Like, really similar player.
Yeah.
Quick, shifty, runs angry, can catch the football, like, isn't shy. I mean, he can take a big workload. He can be involved. Kyle Monongai, you watch this guy when you watch Rutgers, like, he looks different. Like, you're watching Rutgers, you're like, all right, it's a, lower tier Big Ten team, whatever. He looks like he should be at Iowa or at Wisconsin or at Michigan. The dude can play. He's physical. He has a tone, and he's shifty in the open field. Like, Kyle Monongai is another one. We'll see where he goes. This running back class is so stacked. This is a guy that normally we would talk about being a top 100 pick, and you would roll your eyes and be like, they can't, blah, 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 they can't, whatever.
That's true.
You might be able to get him like 130, 150. We'll see how some of the rest of this class shakes out. Remember the wide receiver class?
We're spending a
last
lot of
year?
time on running backs.
All right, remember the wide receiver class last year? How we were
Yes.
just like, oh my god, like this is insane.
It was insane.
That's the running backs this year.
Oh, great. Really quickly, just though, on the two North Carolina kids.
Yeah.
So,
but Hampton's good too. I'd like Hampton too. Sorry.
So both of them ran routes for Drake Maye at his pro day, and I was impressed with both guys.
Yeah.
I thought both guys really moved really, really well. I would think like Hampton would be a nice, not to push Antonio Gibson out necessarily, but like a nice compliment to Ramondre Stevenson and Nesbitt, right? The tight end.
Bryson Nesbitt,
yeah. I mean, Drake Maye at his pro day was rifling some throws up the seam to that kid that I think he's going to be a good player in the league.
Well, so I will say this on Hampton. The reason I'm less excited about that, I just said we can have fun with Kyle Monongai because he's going to go in a spot where the Patriots can take him.
Yeah.
Hampton might end up being top 100.
Yeah, he's a good player.
So that might be, especially for you, a little less realistic.
All right. Todd is in North Carolina. What's up, Todd?
Hey, gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
What you got?
Perfect. So I've been listening to the playbook, and I'm getting kind of tired of Mr. Rook keep saying that we're in the business of winning. They're in the business of building a team. That's what it's about. You're not going to get to winning. They keep skipping that. And I'm thought back a bit, and I think that Bill might have been in that same business for the last couple of years, chasing records and stuff, and that's why he drafted players that weren't going to build a team, but might actually help him win right there and then. And now we've got to be patient and try to build the team, and that includes the coaches, because we got a rookie offensive play caller, we got a rookie coach, we got a rookie defensive player caller, and a rookie quarterback, and everybody's complaining. Boston media seems to be most horrible media I've ever seen when it comes to being impatient and let stuff work. So I don't know what you guys feel, but I don't think you are in the business of winning. You're in the business of building a team. I'll take the answer up there. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Todd. And look, I get what Todd is saying.
It's an old Belichickism. It's not about collecting talent. It's about building a team.
Yeah, but I think he's also you're just saying, like the expectations for the team this year were low, and now here we are at 1-6, and everybody's is jumping off the boat, right? Like, and everyone's freaking out. And I get what he is saying. I guess my only pushback to what he was saying is that you can be a 4-5 win football team as a young up and coming team in this league and have it not look like a dumpster fire, right?
Right.
And I'm talking on and off the field. Like we got an email too, so I guess I'll tie this in. Just asking like what you and I would say is a success the rest of the way. And to me, success the rest of the way is not necessarily anything tangible. Like, it's not like I'm saying be a top 10 offense for the rest of the year or something like that. It's more of a feel thing of like, is the program pointed in the right direction?
Are you seeing progress?
Are you seeing progress? Are you seeing good things on the field? But also, we've had a lot of conversations lately about the receiver room and what's coming out of that room right now, and guys talking and guys having issues and things like that. Like, if that stuff gets buttoned up, if that stuff gets cleaned up, if there's less rumors about what's going on in a position group, or there's less, issues off the field and issues with, attitude and, that kind of stuff, those types of things, if those things improve and those become buttoned up, and they're playing more competitively on Sundays and not getting blown out by 20 points every single week, it doesn't have to be wins and losses, but the arrow has to be pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think it's all about growth and progress, right? And it's not necessarily going to be linear, but you can't go negative either. Basically, to me, a successful season is they look like a better football team Week 18 than they did Week 1.
Exactly. And right now they look like they're getting worse
right.
by the week.
And it might go, okay, so, you're better, and I'm trying to remember specific games. I can't, so excuse me if I'm wrong with the numbers. Like, all right, you were better Week 6 than you were Week 7. You took a little bit of a step back going into Week 7. Then you were better in Week 8. Then you were worse in 9 and 10. And you were better in 11. Like, do you end up at the end of the year? Are you building something? Do we see progress? That's basically what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, when we were talking about...
I think I just said they were better in Week 6. That was a pretty bad game for them, wasn't it? I'm using imaginary numbers there. Don't apply that to specific games.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The last, let's take the last month of the season.
Right.
In the last month of the season, can you go 2-2?
Yeah.
Right? And can you win a game maybe you're not supposed to win down the stretch, and Drake Maye throws for 350 against Buffalo and upsets Josh Allen? Like, if you have those types of games down the stretch, then we're all going to go into the offseason feeling pretty good.
And you know who else is going to go into the offseason feeling pretty good about the Patriots?
Who?
Players around the league who
Right.
are going to want new contracts or want out for trades or things like that. And that's important.
All right. Really quickly, whether you're preparing this week's game day snack spread or already getting ready to host Thanksgiving dinner, Bob's Discount Furniture can help you. Your first move? Play the Bob's Dare to Compare challenge and shop the party-ready Mango Dining Collection. After all, what's more winning than snagging the stylish Mango high-quality solid wood construction for hundreds less than the competition? See how much you can save when you dare to compare with Bob's Discount Furniture. The official furniture store of the New England Patriots, and Massachusetts is made for everyone, for leaf peepers, corn maze strollers, regatta lovers, pumpkin pickers, and anyone else you can think of. Come to where there's something for everyone this fall. Massachusetts, where everything is made possible. Plan your trip at visitma.com. I was going to say org, but it's .com. Visitma.com. All right. Eldred is in North Carolina. What's up, Eldred? E, you there?
Eldred, what's up?
Eldred. All right, call us back, Eldred, and we'll get you on the air. Justina is in North Carolina. What's up, Justina?
Hi, Evan.
What's going on?
My thing is, what my analysis is that the team don't have confidence in Mayo because they let them play. They let Jacoby play for so long, and you know that Mayo was pulling for Drake to play at the beginning, but when they let Jacoby play and lose, so they should have put. I think they should have put Maye in sooner. If they had put him in sooner, then he probably would have. They probably would have more respect as far as him being the CEO, as far as Mayo being the CEO. But they're like, you knew that Drake was better. You even said it, and you're letting us lose these games. You're not managing he should have said something sooner, or he should have maybe put Maye in like the one half or something. I mean, I'm not all against the fact that they did play Jacoby, because now you can see the difference. You can see the respect there. And I don't think you can see that Maye is the better coach. So I think he's giving more power to the offensive coach. And I'm not saying that AVP was totally on point as far as I'm giving Maye some credit for his play. because the same coach was coaching Jacoby, but you didn't see that the same outcome in Jacoby. So I give May some credit too for how successful he is, and I just think that May as first year coach is saying that he wants to be the CEO, but he's not a CEO. Like you said, he needs to take over the defense, and he should have stepped in and had May play sooner. And I think the team would be more cohesive and trust him more, and trust what he's doing more. But that's my take.
Thanks, Justina. Thanks for the call. It's a good take. I agree with a lot of what you said, as you know.
I'm sure you do.
I think that the biggest thing that she said that I just agree with in a lot of ways, and this goes back to our whole conversation off the top of the show, not that conversation a couple weeks ago.
It goes back to that a little bit.
Smirking over there.
It goes back to that a little bit.
Smirking over there. I see you. A couple weeks ago, a couple hours ago now, at the beginning of the show, we were talking about like culture building versus a strategist and all that kind of stuff. I would put Mayo saying that Drake Maye outplayed Jacoby Brissett into that category of culture builder cannot say that, right? Like culture builder can't say that because that sets the team up and Gerard Mayo up for, well, if this guy is better than that guy, why is that guy playing, right? So like these are the things in the media that I don't necessarily care a ton about, but if you're trying to be culture guy, you're trying to be personality hire, CEO, head coach, then you need to avoid throwing players and people under the bus that are underneath you because you need those guys to be bought in. Like right now, again, just my opinion, do you think Jacoby Brissett is thrilled with the situation and how things go down? Jacoby Brissett's going out there on Sundays and he's still wearing a C on his jersey. He's a captain of this team. So these are the things that if you're trying to be Campbell, Tomlin, Carroll, like one of those types of guys, like these are the things that can come back to bite you when you say it in the media.
Yeah.
That's it? You don't have a take?
I agree with you. Like well, I agree with the big picture. Like I obviously was fine with them sitting him. I think they have played him 1 week earlier. I've said this. I just based off some reports from me and Rapport around that time, I do think they wanted to play him in the Dolphins game, and David Andrews' injury pushed that back a week.
Definitely possible.
But, yeah, I think Gerard Mayo's kind of said as much since. But besides that, like, yeah, there definitely is a different tone with Drake Maye at quarterback.
All right, let's get to some of these emails, too.
Call, too.
I know. We'll get to the call. I want to get to this email, though. Danny from Chicago, subject line AVP one and done ? Says he loves the show and is just wondering our outlook on Alex Van Pelt this season. Is he a one and done candidate? And some names that maybe could replace him. I don't want to get to the names quite yet because I go back to what I was saying earlier in the show when we were breaking down Drake Maye. I actually feel like they've done a nice job with Drake, and like I said then, like I feel like he's prepared. I feel like he's ready to play. And Justina brings up a good point, like that he deserves credit for that too. Yeah. You know, that he's got his hand in that as well. But I have said this before, and I feel the same way. There's a chance, and I'm going to cross sports here for a second. There's a chance that Alex Van Pelt is Mark Jackson, and they need Steve Kerr down the line, right? And by saying that, if Alex Van Pelt does a really nice job of developing Drake Maye, then I wouldn't necessarily want to pull the rug out from underneath that just because we don't love the scheme that he's running, or we don't love that he's not this like super innovative, tight pant offensive coordinator like we like to joke about. But I wouldn't necessarily pull him from that if Drake Maye's development is continuing to go on an upward trajectory. Now, in 2 to 3 years, if Drake Maye is a finished product and Van Pelt's done his job, and then Gerard Mayo, whoever the head coach is, decides, hey, we need somebody that's a little bit more innovative, a little bit more schematically savvy than Alex Van Pelt, then then go for it. But I wouldn't necessarily pull the plug now because I think you are seeing mechanical improvements, footwork improvements. He looks like he knows what he's looking at and reading the field well. And I wouldn't want to do that just because we're going to hire a Cliff Kingsbury type that draws up better plays.
Look, Alex Van Pelt's a heck of a quarterbacks coach.
Yeah.
You know, we can debate him as an offensive coordinator. He's a heck of a quarterbacks coach.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know that I want to pull the rug on that just yet. The one thing I do wonder is, look, the record's not going to be great. It might not be an improvement from last year. I don't think Gerard Mayo's getting one and done. I don't think Elliott Wolf's getting one and done.
Yeah.
For a number of different reasons. Should it happen, we can debate that. Crystal ball, I don't think it will happen regardless of what should or shouldn't. So, is there going to be a fall guy? Does that end up being Alex Van Pelt?
Yeah.
I'd worry about that. And to your point, like, if it's clicking with him and Drake Maye, I'd be hesitant about that because it's all about right now what's best for the kid. And I talked about this at the beginning of the show. You now have to walk this tightrope of reorganizing things around him to fix what's broken right now without messing up the environment you've created for him to succeed. Some of that, there's not a ton of overlap. You don't have to worry about it, right? You know, reconfiguring the wide receiver room, he's got to get new chemistry with new wide receivers. Most quarterbacks have to do that year in and year out anyway. I'm not super worried about that. Once you start doing the whole 2 offensive coordinators in 2 years thing, and then does that become 3 and 3? Because if you hire a good offensive coordinator, I am curious who's on that list, Evan, just because, like, let's say you do hire one of these Wonderkin guys. And then he goes, what's the quarterbackks coach in Houston who I really like?
I know you're
clearly not enough because I don't remember his name. Is it Gerard Johnson? Johnson. Like I liked him.
Quarterback in the league. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I liked it. But like, if you go and you hire him, there's a decent chance he's a head coach in 2026.
Right.
Right. And now you have 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years, and we all know how that thing goes. So, if it's working for Drake Maye, even if the offense, like you said, maybe isn't the most innovative, the most eye-popping, if it's working for Drake Maye, let it sit for a little bit. It doesn't mean the two are tied together forever.
Right.
And look, the reality is, if Drake Maye's good, at some point Alex Van Pelt's going to get hired away to be an offensive coordinator.
Sure.
So, like, that's not locked in forever. But you got to be careful about the moves that impact Maye directly, and that would be one of them. So, not ruling out him being one and done. I just think there's more that comes with that than just we can get a guy that wears khakis, to your point.
Yeah.
To use your phrasing.
Yeah, I wonder too, and maybe this is it won't be possible because these guys are so highly coveted around the league. But like, is there even a possibility that they could bring one of those guys on staff and have somebody help with play design and innovation and stuff like that for a time being? And because I think you put it greatly, like Van Pelt is a good quarterbacks coach, and right now you have a 22-year-old rookie quarterback who needs some developing and needs some seasoning, and I think he's doing his job. I really do think he's doing his job, even though it hasn't been great in schematically.
You talk about bringing in like essentially like an offensive consultant, which some people might say is what McAdoo is, but I mean, you know who I look at in that regard.
Brian Daboll?
Well, that would be one. I think if Daboll gets canned, he's either going to be a head coach or he's going to be the highest paid offense coordinator in the league in Buffalo, or just the head coach of the Bills. Different AFC East coach.
Different McDaniel?
Yeah. Like, some of it, and you know how I feel about Mike McDaniel as head coach.
Yeah.
Like, do not think that works. That's part of the reason he's attracted to me as an offense coordinator. Because if he gets hired away, it's the Josh McDaniels factor, right? That's what part, and honestly, like, I'd put Josh McDaniels on the list. Like, if you're going to replace me, I'm not going to move on from Van Pelt blindly and just say this guy isn't the answer, because he's giving you some good things. If you're going to move on from Alex Van Pelt, there needs to be a clear improvement in place, and ideally a guy that's going to have at least a couple years before he gets head coach attention. McDaniel, if it ends ugly in Miami, I'm not worried about him getting hired elsewhere for a year or two.
Yeah.
If Josh McDaniels is like in the picture, we're not worried about Josh McDaniels being an NFL head coach at this point. You know, you kind of have him for the long term. Guys like that, right? If you can make that higher, then maybe you talk about it. I'm not moving on from Alex Van Pelt for the next upshot wonder kid who's going to leave in a year to be a head coach. That, to me, you're probably going to cause long-term more harm than good. Because now you're talking about, what are they at now? 6 in 6 years? Is McDaniels in 21?
Yep.
Patricia 22. Bill O'Brien 23. All right, so they're at 4-4. You move on. Now you're at 5-5. And if you hire one of these guys who has head coaching upside, now you're on 6-6. Like it's 3-3 with Drake Maye. That's not a good situation.
Yeah, McDaniel's an interesting name too because it's a similar system. Like
Right.
I think that's what's big, and people have to recognize that as well. Josh McDaniels, who we all love on this program. Like I love Josh McDaniels as an offensive mind, but Josh McDaniels runs an Earnhardt Perkins offense with a totally different run system and a totally different playbook than what Alex Van Pelt in a West Coast scheme runs now with the Patriots. So you're not going to hire Josh McDaniels to consult on an offense that he knows nothing about, right? Like, and I understand offense is offense, but you're basically hiring a Spanish teacher to teach Italian, right? Like that just wouldn't make much
Right.
sense. Now McDaniel, it speaks Italian and can coach Italian, and Alex Van Pelt and him speak Italian together. Now maybe Alex Van Pelt is from Southern Italy and McDaniel's from Northern Italy, but we're still all speaking Italian, right?
Right.
So those things can work a little bit. But in terms of like McDaniels or anybody from like the old Belichick tree, like that's going to be a completely different terminology and a completely different system. So McDaniel's an interesting one. I don't think he's getting fired, but that's an interesting one. But
I don't think
from
he is
that
either,
tree.
but that's kind of been my thing. Like if he does get let go.
All right,
you know.
let's take this last call, and then I want to do like 5 to 10 minutes on the Jets,
All
and
right.
then we're going to wrap it up. Jose is in Texas. What's up, Jose?
Hey, Alex. Hey, Evan.
Hey,
How we doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. So I had a question about the Jets. Do you think it's going to be a high-scoring game, or do you think that the defense is finally going to step up for the Patriots? I kind of don't see the defense not giving up less than 150 yards on the ground.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Jose, and thanks for the segue, because I wanted to talk about that anyways. So the Jets on Sunday. When I look at this Jets team right now, my bigger concern, certainly for the Patriots, is Aaron Rodgers in this Jets offense. I know it hasn't necessarily statistically bared out. Like they don't have great numbers offensively, and Rodgers has been a little bit up and down and all that kind of stuff. But I just look at this Jets offense. Their best game of the year was obviously Week 3 against the Patriots. They have a lot of weapons. They can beat you in multiple ways. They now have Devontae Adams in the mix. It just feels like there's a lot of fires to put out for the Patriots defense this week, and I have a lot of concerns about this matchup.
I'm more worried about the run game, honestly, than Rodgers.
Yeah.
Like, he's still getting on the same page with guys and things like that, but Braylon Allen,
Breece
Hall, like, these are hard physical runners up against a team that can't tackle.
Yeah.
They've been opening holes. Like, if the Patriots, so they allowed 171 yards on the ground against Jaguars last week, who've been a good run team this year.
Yeah.
They play that kind of defense against the Jets, they're going to go over 200. And look, Aaron Rodgers is banged up. Devontae Adams is still getting brought into the mix. I know he has the previous chemistry with Rodgers, but he's still getting brought in the mix. Alden Lazard is hurt. He didn't practice yesterday. I think the Jets are going to come out and want to run the ball. Like, I don't think they're going to... Kind of like, remember the Patriots used to do this to the Jets? It was like, let's just get through this game. Like, we're not going to totally unleash Tom Brady. We're not, right?
Yeah.
I think the Jets are going to come out and run the ball 35 times. And in that sense, I actually think it's going to be a low-scoring game because I think the clock's going to be running a lot. But if I'm the Patriots, I would almost rather the ball be in Rodgers' hands. And I know that sounds crazy.
It does a little bit.
And especially after what he did to them on Thursday night to start the season. But I just think the Jets can run up and down the field the way this Patriots defense is playing right now.
Well, that's my concern, I guess, when I say that there's a lot of fires to put out is that, I don't know how the Patriots come into this game and, like, take something. You have to take something away.
So let me be clear.
Right?
I don't feel great with the ball being in Rodgers' hands, but it's like you have to pick one, right?
Yeah. And that gets back to, like, what we were talking in the first hour about this defense. Like, right now, you have to take something away as a defense. Either you're not going to run on us or you're not going to throw on us. And if you beat us by running for 200 yards, then good for you, right? And vice versa. And right now, the Patriots' defense isn't doing any of it. Right, they're not stopping the run or the pass, like, effectively. So I look at this Jets offense, and it's kind of like, well, they can just sort of do whatever they want, right? Like, if it's the run game, it's the run game. If it's the pass game, it's the pass game. Back in Week 3, the Patriots played a lot of those too high safety shells. They really geared up for the passing game with Rodgers, and they ran it right down their throats at the beginning of that game and kind of opened things up. They ran a lot of that zone lead, fullback in the backfield, outside zone, but with the fullback leading the way into that two-back. They are sort of the first team to put heavy personnel on the field against the Patriots defense and make the Patriots play base, and then they threw against base. Like, that strategy kind of came from the Jets. So I just look at this Jets offense. I think Rodgers has been shaky, frankly. The Patriots are the only game that I thought that he played well in all year. He's been shaky, but the one thing that he's still really, really good at is if you give him single coverage on the outside, he can still drop it in the bucket, and he's going to get the ball out quickly. He's one of the fastest release times in the NFL. He's getting out in under 2.4 seconds. So he has no desire whatsoever to hold the ball anymore. And you give him Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson one-on-one against somebody on the perimeter, that's where the ball is going. So that would be my concern. In terms of, all right, if we load up, 7-8 guys in the box, single high, stop the run, make it, put the game in Rodgers' hands, I have confidence that Christian Gonzalez can take a guy one-on-one and at least hold his own.
Right.
I love the Joneses. I think both of them have been solid this year for the Patriots, but Adams is a big dude. And if Lazar plays, he's a big dude.
And this is what they struggled with last time, the big receivers.
So, fades, back shoulders, slants where guys are just boxing people out, things like that. Those become concerns. Tyler Conklin had like a huge game out of nowhere against the Patriots in week 3. Another big body target at tight end for the Jets. I worry a lot about this Jets offense. I think this Jets offense is has a lot of ways to beat the Patriots, and that's going to be concerning. But kind of like the week 3 game, I don't expect them to run it up. Like, I don't expect them to be high scoring. Like, I think 24, 27 points for the Jets is right where they're going to be at. Offensively for the Patriots, I expect them to be able to move the ball a little bit better, certainly, than they did in week 3. Mainly, obviously, because of Drake Maye, but also because I would think that Van Pelt has a better plan. The Jets came out in that game. They blitzed the heck out of Jacoby Brissett. They're not really a blitz defense. That's not really what they do. And they did it in week 3, and it definitely took the Patriots by surprise. So hopefully they're better equipped and more prepared for that this time around. The Jets have also had some injuries in their secondary. DJ Reed, Michael Carter, been in and out of practice and things like that. They didn't play last week, so we'll see what happens there. But I do feel like the Patriots are going to score more against this Jets defense this time around. I just don't know if they can stop them.
Right. I think it's going to be, you're going to hear me come in next week, yell about time of possession and play disparity and things like that. I think it's going to be one of those games.
Well, we'll see. I hope it's better than what we're forecasting. I think I picked 24-14 Jets on PU.
Yeah, it feels about right.
Yeah.
I'd say I was going to go 27-17, something like that.
Yeah,
so.
I just don't feel like this is one of those games where they run away with it, truly. Like, I don't think it's going to be a 45-10 blowout or anything crazy like that, but just kind of like that week 3 game, I think there will be a clear winner in this game, and you're going to come away with this. And just the last thing I wanted to say about the Jets, and then we'll wrap it up. In week 3, there's a lot of juice in that building. It was their home opener. It was Aaron Rodgers' first game back there since tearing his Achilles the year before. It was a short week, so energy was a big issue. Whether it was the crowd giving the Jets energy, it was the Patriots lacking energy on a short week. So when we came out of that game, on paper, it looks like the Jets are a much better team. They just look like they have a much better roster. My question for the Patriots in this game is, can you match the energy level, and let's actually see what the talent gap is, right? Like, is it truly as wide as it looked in week 3, or are they closer than maybe it seems? Because the Jets, let's face it, they're 2-5. Like, they're not. Yeah. They're not this AFC powerhouse like a lot of people thought they were. They just fired their head coach like 2 weeks ago. So this Jets team is also not done well this year and not playing up to their standard or their roster talent. So they looked like they were a varsity team against a JV team on that Thursday night game. So I'm hoping that we see a little bit of a different discrepancy there. Given
the way the last week has gone and all of that, all the reason to come out fired up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, football season is definitely here. We're alive and kicking now in football season, Bridgestone. And Sullivan Tire and Auto Service kicks things off in a big way with our exclusive Go Pats tire sale now through October 31st. Score big with incredible savings on Bridgestone tires. Save $100 instantly with the purchase of 4 eligible Bridgestone tires. Bridgestone, the official tire of the New England Patriots. See SullivanTire.com for complete details. Go Patriots, and easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. We'll be back next week, recap this Jets game, preview a trip to Nashville for the Tennessee Titans the following week. Looking forward to that trip. That's one of my favorites, going down there to Nashville. It's going to be a good time. But until then, Alex Barth, Evan Lazar, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.